Next, South Carolina. On the Democrat side, unlike Iowa and New Hampshire, where the electorate is almost all white, black Democrats have a huge influence. Surely with that in mind, Hillary Clinton made a side trip to Flint, Michigan to address victims of poisoned drinking water.
This is not merely unacceptable or wrong, though it is both. What happened in Flint is immoral. The children of Flint are just as precious as the children of any other part of America. They are just as deserving of good health care, of good education, and of bright futures.
As for Bernie Sanders, after his win, he headed off to New York to Sylvia's restaurant in Harlem. I was a regular when I lived in the city, to meet with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Joining me to discuss what lies ahead are Jennifer Braceras. Jennifer's an editor at New Boston Post and a Rubio supporter. Senator Dan Wolf, Democrat from Harwich, and a Sanders supporter and Boston Globe columnist Scott Lehigh, a Rational Thought supporter. I didn't write that. Someone else wrote that for me. Good to see all three of you. So Hillary Clinton goes into South Carolina with a huge lead. However, let's put up her votes with millennials. In Iowa, we all know 17 to 29-year-olds, 70-point margin. In New Hampshire, the same electorate as 67-point margin. Why can't he do the same thing in a week or so with African-American and Latino millennials and essentially do a big surprise down there?
Well, it's got a possibility. He obviously now has the stage. I'm a little dubious because I think it takes time. It built in a slow, kind of incremental way in New Hampshire before he solidified it. But he certainly will now have a chance to make his case, and in a conservative state and more conservative state, we'll see whether the same dynamic is at
She has to
play.
win there, right? I mean, their old notion is New Hampshire was aberrational. He's a neighbor. It's tailor-made for him. If she loses in South Carolina, which is arguably tailor-made for her, she's got a big problem.
And I'll tell you, I do think Nevada will now probably go Sanders, and that intervenes on the Democratic side. Yeah, I think so. That's a caucus. SEIU, very big out there.
Good with young people too, caucuses, that sort of thing. Yeah. So the reality is, though, on the sort of civil rights front, when your candidate has to talk about who he marched with 40 years ago, it sort of is an attempt to leapfrog decades of basically representing a white constituency in Vermont. He's a little late to the fair, Dan Wolf, isn't he?
Well, it's representing decades of failure of both parties to really address urban and minority issues in this country. And I think Bernie Sanders is prepared to do that, and I think he'll have a smart conversation with the folks in South Carolina.
Yeah, so what's your sense of the ability of Sanders to break through? Again, he's got a lot of travel. Forget Nevada for a second. South Carolina, he's got a lot of traveling to do in a very short period of time, a week plus.
I think he will do better than people thought he was going to do, but the truth is the South is Clinton country, and she's going to call in a lot of favors from his organization, old friends, the African-American community. She's going to be calling in all those favors.
But we talked to David Paleologos last night in our radio coverage, who was obviously from Suffolk. He wouldn't give a precise number, but he said Sanders is clearly going to get a bump out of this colossal win. It may only be 10 points, but it's a start, and then things tend to pick up momentum. You're frowning at me, no?
No, I agree. No, you cannot win like that in New Hampshire without sort of surfing into the next primaries on the cover of all the news publications and looking really strong. And you have a chance then to you open some minds that weren't open before. People take a look at you, they think about you, they evaluate you, and they look at her a little differently, I think, too, because of it.
Why'd you pick Sanders quickly, by the way?
Because Sanders, I think, reaffirms what my party has stood for, the Democratic Party, since World War II, that building of the middle class. He really does harken back to a time when we stood for something and connected our values to our policy.
Were you with him when he was like minus 10%, or is this? Are you late to the game here too?
No, not late to the game. I've been with Bernie even before he announced he was running for president. I think he brings something to the Democratic Party that is long overdue.
Did you not, conservative Jennifer Braceras, did you not tell me the best professor you had at Harvard was Elizabeth Warren, Harvard Law School? Did you not tell me that once?
She was one of them.
Okay, where is she? Where is she on this thing? What is she waiting for? I mean, I can make a case.
She's waiting either to be tapped by Bernie as vice president, or she's waiting for Hillary to implode, Joe Biden to come in and tap her as vice president.
People really think this Biden thing is real. I mean,
I think it's real.
You think it's real?
Well, I think if Hillary gets indicted, or if she's recommended for indictment, yes, it's real.
Your guy, I assume, is calling her up every single day. That would be a huge break in this thing if she's the first woman Democratic senator, arguably the highest profile and most important one in this kind of race, if she picked your guy, no?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think her as a vice president is very unlikely. Two Northeast folks with that ideological
Right,
background.
just like Bill Clinton would never pick another Southerner in
Exactly.
1992, right?
Well,
Remember that guy Al Gore?
yeah.
You wrote a column today. It's the end of the beginning. What is that? This is the Republicans. What does that mean exactly?
It means that we have this tendency to want to say, hey, Iowa and New Hampshire have decided everything, and it's ridiculous. What they do is they give some indications, usually contrary indications, because New Hampshire people aren't all that inclined to take their cues from New Hampshire, and they winnow the field a little bit, but we want to impose this template out of New Hampshire that says this is what's going to happen, it's all clarified. All we've really done here is we've said, I mean, all the talk about, well, there are 2 tickets, there are 3 tickets. No, there are 5 guys who are going to go forward out of this. We've winnowed the field some and set it up for future contests, but there's this strange rush to simplicity to try to say, okay, now we know, and you're not going to know for some months.
Well, John Sununu, the elder, was with me last night. He's the one that said Iowa picks Corn and New Hampshire picks presidents. They actually haven't picked a president since the late 80s, which lends some credence to your thing. Your guy, Marco Rubio, he predicted even before Saturday night that the robotic Rubio was going to implode at some point. He did implode, and Rubio, I think to his credit, strategically and otherwise, admitted in that Emily package that he did a horrible job.
Yeah.
How does he recover from this thing? He dropped to 10 points
Yeah,
when some people thought he was going to win in New Hampshire.
It definitely hurt him, but you know what? The first test of leadership is being willing to take personal responsibility, and he did that. And now what he needs to do is go down to South Carolina, and he does need to come out of the bubble, and he needs to get off script a little bit. And let's be clear, they're all on script, right? They're all repeating their applause lines over and over and over. But he needs to get out there and show who he is as a person, and when he does that, I think he's going to be really strong.
Did you hear him say it's going to be a bloodbath, was his word in South Carolina, Marco Rubio?
Well, that's the reputation of South Carolina.
So what's your take on who is the person to really challenge Donald Trump? The conventional wisdom was Trump and Cruz were sort of variation on the same theme. Someone was going to merge. It was Rubio. Is it John Kasich? Can he play in the South, the Ohio governor?
I think it's either Kasich or Bush. I think it has to be, because it has to be somebody more establishment and more moderate.
Bush, speaking of Bush, I mean, not only did he surprise, and I think the most important thing last night is not edging into whatever he did. Was it 4th place, 3rd place, 4th place?
4th place.
But he edged out Marco Rubio in sort of the Florida primary. That's not insignificant.
No, pretty critical in a way.
It is
South Carolina, I think, now becomes quite critical for him because it's been a firewall state for the Bushes. If he does not do well there, then I think he legitimately... Jeb, yeah. I mean, some people say, well, New Hampshire ends it. No. But South Carolina, a poor finish there, I think would be really crippling to him.
Well, his brother, who's pretty popular there, who won a primary, as in W, is actually not just doing an ad, which he's done so far. He's going to be physically campaigning with his brother. A lot of military voters. That's a big deal, no?
Well, which way does that cut? I mean, Americans are, perfectly happy to have 2 Bushes or 2 Adamses, but do they really want 3? I don't think that the Republican Party wants a 3rd, and I think bringing in Mommy in New Hampshire and bringing in Big Brother in South Carolina, it brings people out, their beloved
He's still pretty
figures.
popular with the conservative Republican base.
You know what?
You watch that?
I love George W. Bush. I voted for him twice. I'd vote for him a 3rd time if I could. Not voting for Jeb.
Quickly.
You watch that ad that says experience and judgment's important in the Oval Office. You have George W. Bush saying it, and you find yourself saying, now you tell us? I mean, his judgment was not good in the Oval Office
Well,
on
I
a lot of
disagree
things.
with that.
We're running out of time. You're a pretty successful businessman. There's another pretty successful businessman, actually born here, who's thinking of entering this race, particularly in the wake of a Trump and Sanders win, neither of whom he likes. Mike Bloomberg, what's your bet on this thing?
I don't think Bloomberg gets in.
Why do you say that? Because you don't want him to get in, or you actually believe he won't?
I don't think he's electable on a national ticket. I really don't. So I think that it's going to be Sanders and Hillary Clinton until
Do you
the
think
end.
Sanders is going to win the primary?
I certainly hope he is, and I think he can. He is defying the odds every step of the way so far, Jim, and I think he can do it.
Very quickly, Bloomberg in or no?
No.
In or no?
If those 2 are the nominees of their respective parties, yes.
So you think Biden's the Democrat, Bloomberg's the independent, who's the Republican?
No, I don't think Bloomberg gets in unless Sanders is the nominee.
Nice to see you, Jennifer
You
Pasillos.
too.
How are you? Senator Wolf,
Jim, thank
pleasure
you.
to
Great
see
to see
you.
you.
And Scott Lee, get out of here.